Hello and welcome to Qatar Foundation International and Global Nomads Group Coastal Protection and Conservation webcast. We're broadcasting live from Mus'ab bin Umair Independent Secondary School for Boys. I am Anas Ghanem, a student at Mus'ab bin Umair School.
And I'm Haneen Higazi from Alban Educational Complex. In this webcast, we will be exploring the ways that coastal ecosystems are critical to the fight against climate change. Please watch this brief video that will introduce you to this webcast.
We know the coastline is beautiful to look at, but did you know that healthy coastal ecosystems are critical to human well-being? They provide storm protection, nurseries for fish, water purification, and can even fight climate change. How? As we continue emitting greenhouse gases through driving and heating our homes and schools, these ecosystems are absorbing the carbon dioxide before it affects the atmosphere. Coastal ecosystems can absorb up to 5 times more carbon than tropical forests. The only problem is 30% of these ecosystems have already been destroyed, and this is continuing at a rate of 2% per year in order to build houses, roads, and farms. By protecting and conserving the mangroves, seagrasses, and salt marshes, we are fighting against climate change.
We would like to welcome all of our audience who are watching us live and virtually. We would like to welcome one of our special live audience, Mr. Nasser Jassim Al Thani. Thank you for being here today. To kick things off, we would like to start with this question. What coastal ecosystems are, and why are they important? Each speaker has 30 seconds to answer. Mr. Rodrigo, how about if you started?
Oh, thank you so much. What are the coastal communities? Are the interface between land and sea. Maybe, for example, you can see several types of coasts. Maybe we're talking about mangroves, beaches, intertidal rocks. And maybe, for example, we are talking about only the intertidal and subtidal as well. Underwater till 200 meters depth. Just to my
Hello. I'll keep it brief since my colleague has pretty much covered everything. To me, coast represents the land, the area where land meets a sea that house a lot of and diverse variety of organisms. And it also helps in a lot of ways with the environment and in many industrial and economical ways. I'll pass on to my next colleague.
Coastal ecosystem is important because it plays a very significant role. It can protect your coastline. It can provide food for a lot of fishes. And in addition to what my predecessors have all said, we can talk about this in detail later on.
From a fisheries perspective, coastal ecosystems provide a habitat for a lot of fisheries and as a nursery for some fish and as a food source for other fisheries.
We are so pleased to have a diverse panel of experts who are dedicated to studying different aspects of coastal ecosystem and environmental significance.
They are here to speak with us today so we can better understand this hot topic. But before we get started, I would like for all of our audience to take a poll, which we will refer back at the end of the webcast. How much of the world's annual carbon dioxide emissions can coastal ecosystems store? A, 250%, B, 150%, C, 100%, or D, 50%? Please answer this question and click done when you are done with the answer.
When you are done selecting your response, please select done to continue viewing our program. To our live audience, please write your answer down on the index card you have on your seat.
They are amazing people who have great experience in the environmental field. Let me introduce the first speaker. This guest is a research executive marine at Qatar Science and Technology Park. She has a degree in biology. One of Ms. Moza Al Naimi projects is the Sustainable Management of Marine and Fisheries Resource Project in partnership with Qatar University and the Ministry of the Environment. Thank you for joining us today.
This speaker is currently a professor at Qatar University. His research interest deals with the ecological management of intertidal, coastal, and inland sea line ecosystem, as well as screening and development of cash crop halophyte. Dr. Jamal Khan, thank you for being here.
In Qatar, Rodrigo Riera is working on several projects related to terrestrial and marine biodiversity, trying to get an overall picture of animals, mainly reptiles, living here in Qatar. Thank you, Dr. Riera, for joining us here.
This panelist is an IB student at Al Bayan Educational Complex. She's very engaged in environmental issues and has taken a part in various events concerning making a change. Whether it's cleaning the beach with Rota Trip, or mapping the mangroves with QFI, or running an environmental club in her school, Reem Isa has the experience being a leader. In the future, she wants to continue participating in similar events. Thank you for joining us today. We will be spending the first part of our webcast talking about the many ways that coastal ecosystems, often called blue carbon ecosystems, are providing benefits to our environment and human life. We will now address related issues with our panel of guest speakers.
His Excellency Razan Khalifa Al Mubarak, Secretary General of Environmental Agency in Abu Dhabi, is quoted as saying, "Our mangroves are an important part of our natural ecosystem. Their survival is key to the sustainability of our emirate." Can you please explain this further for our international audience?
Thank you very much for the question. I think mangrove is very, very important because they serve a lot of different purpose. Mangrove, main of everything else, is the carbon sink. It can store a huge amount of carbon compared to any other vegetation in the world. In addition to that, the sediment of mangrove can also store a huge amount of carbon. And in addition, mangrove provide hatcheries and ground for the fishes, which I will leave to the other panelists to talk about. And mangrove can also be used as a medicine in some part of the world. Mangrove can also be used as a fodder if you remove the tannin from it. And mangrove can be used as a burning coal. Mangrove can be used as a wood for making small houses, as a lot of people do in the world. Mangrove also used to make a boat. And sometimes people marinate their fish catch in the mangrove to protect it from being destroyed. So there are many, many economical uses. There are many good relationships between human and the mangrove. The best of all it is that it protects your coast from the storm, it protects from erosion, and it looks beautiful in a desert like this.
Well, thank you, Dr. Khan. Reem, can you tell us about coastal ecosystems in your community in Qatar?
Well, as we've studied for long years at our schools, Qatar is a peninsula. That means it's surrounded by water from three sides. That means more than 75% of Qatar is coastal ecosystems, but most of them are mangroves, like Dr. Khan have said, because they have Qatar has been very, very interested in planting these such trees and saving what's rest of them in the world. And they've been on a project where they have implanted and housed a lot of mangroves in Al Khor. And I've been there, and I've been very lucky to go there twice and see the mangroves right there by myself. Thank you.
Dr. Riera, as a marine biologist, how is your work related to the coastal ecosystems?
Oh, thanks for the question. You know, my two main research lines are between, the first one was about, the perturbations, triggered by humans in coastal ecosystems. We are talking about harbors, pipelines, desalination plants, how they affect to coastal ecosystems. And then the second one, how to study, communities or places that haven't been altered by humans, like marine protected areas or maybe like sanctuaries, for example, in the Pacific, close to Australia. I used to work there in Tasmania and in my country, in the Canary Islands as well. And now we are preparing a proposal here in Qatar about marine protected areas and artificial reefs.
Thank you, Dr. Riera. Anas, do you know what halophyte is?
Hello, what? I don't know what that is.
Dr. Khan have dedicated much of his career studying a plant that can grow in coastal ecosystem, halophyte, and its many sustainable uses. Can you tell Anas and everybody what is the importance of halophyte?
Thank you for the question. The question I was looking forward to get. I spent all my life working on the halophyte, so I guess time is not enough for me to go on. Let me say briefly, it is those plants which can survive and complete their life cycle under saline condition. Okay, so there are many community in places in all over this region, starting from Indian desert all the way to Moroccan desert. Fresh water is not available, so the most plant is going in that area are halophyte, which can survive salt. Another major problem here that we do not have a lot of water. We know very well in Qatar and other part of the world, and we are fighting wars for the water. And agriculture is something that utilizes most water than anything else. So what my research says that if we can use brackish water or seawater and irrigate with those non-conventional plants like halophytes, we can produce product like fodder, fuel, biofuel, and then a medicinal plant, you name it, turf plant, anything that can be done. Just to add to something, we have done an extensive research in Pakistan before coming here. And out of our 6 years of research, we have produced a fodder crop, which is already patented, which is as good as a maize plant. We have done 6 years of very extensive experimentation to determine that. It is, and then we can produce with the use of underground brackish water irrigation about 60,000 kg per hectare per year. Just imagine you live in a country where you do not have fresh water readily available. You can just go to the underground brackish water and produce a crop with 60,000 kg per hectare per year, and then you can grow a lot of animals in it, and it will be a good source of protein for the local people.
Ms. Moza, I know you have been researching ways to create sustainable fisheries in Qatar. Can you tell us what exactly is a sustainable fishery and what impact does they have towards coastal ecosystem?
Sustainable fisheries is about trying to balance the needs of our population as well as the needs for the environment and provide a continuous source of fisheries for the local population. And we do this by trying to combine different factors together. We need to know how healthy our sea is. We need to know how much fish is needed for our country or for our local use. And we need to know what are all the different coastal areas are used for and what are the threatened areas that we need to protect to maintain our precious resources.
Thank you, Ms. Moza. Dr. Rodrigo, I know you focus on studying pristine ecosystems. What is pristine, and are there many left in the world?
Oh, thanks for the question. Yeah, it's a really good question because most of the people have, the feeling that all our coastal environments are damaged, are being polluted, and there are several areas, maybe for example in the Pacific Ocean, that have been, modified by the human activities. There are like Virgin Islands that have no contact with humans now, like Midway Island or maybe Northern Line Islands. And in my country as well, there is a couple of islands. There's as well, they haven't got any human activities. So you use them as a laboratory. We use them as experiments, and then we compare, these pristine habitats, this is the technical term that to say non-altered habitats, to altered or polluted habitats, and to see what are the difference between, is there fishes in one place and in another, maybe invertebrates like sea stars, sea urchins, shrimps, and this kind of stuff.
I have a question for all of our guest speakers. What do you believe is the most important reason to preserve these ecosystems? Each of you has 30 seconds to answer.
Well, ecosystems from a human-centrist point of view is a source for our livelihood. We are part of the environment, and the environment provides for us. So we have to protect our resources.
From my perspective, ecosystem is just like any other system. We are also part of that system. I can give you an example. If you take any critical part out of any machine, will that function? And that's the importance of this ecosystem.
I believe that preserve ecosystems because they are a great local economical factor, and they have been housing lots of different marine animals and filtering a lot of contaminations from running into the ocean, and they're even metal tolerant, which is really a good thing, and that's why I think we should preserve them, because by preserving them we're saving Mother Earth.
Yeah, I agree entirely with the guests. I think we have to live in a more sustainable way, and we have to be part of this the trophic, of the marine ecosystem in a more respectful way, just to conserve our, sources, our biodiversity, and our coastal communities.
We'll now ask a question from our virtual audience. Malak from Doha is asking, how can coastal ecosystem affect human badly?
Okay, my turn. I think, in several ways. The first one, this is about food. We are going to, the coastal ecosystems are altered or, perturbed, by humans. There are less food sources. We are talking about fisheries, less fish, less crabs, less shrimps to eat. And then we got problems with erosion as well. And then as well with pollution. We got, in polluted areas, that are so difficult to maintain diverse communities because there are so many contaminants like heavy metals, oil, etc., that they still remain in the sediment for centuries or, or even thousands of years.
Now a question from our live audience.
By how much approximately ecosystems gives us oxygen? Because we are only discussing how much is emit from carbon dioxide, but we didn't mention how much it gives oxygen.
Well, the question was, how much do the coastal ecosystems give oxygen? And yeah.
Okay, I'm very bad at the mathematics. Okay, the simple equation is, if you take one CO2 in, you will release one oxygen out. But basically, there are some minor variations there. So if you are, if 1 hectare of mangrove can absorb 300 tons of carbon dioxide, this is how much O2 will be released. Theoretically.
Thank you, Doctor. As a reminder, we have asked you, our audience, to answer a poll question about the estimated amount of the world's annual carbon dioxide emissions. If you haven't already, please be sure to answer the question when it pops up on your screen and close it out when done.
Coastal ecosystems are found throughout the globe. We now know some of the many ways that mangroves, seagrasses, and sea salt marshes can help the fight against climate change.
Haneen, did you know that coastal ecosystems are among the most threatened and rapidly disappearing ecosystems worldwide?
Well, that's interesting, Anas. We will now address this issue with our panel of guest speakers.
These ecosystems make up only 4% of the globe's natural areas, Why are these becoming priority areas of protection over other ecosystems like the rainforests? What's so special about them? Each speaker, if you has 30 seconds to answer.
As you said, a large percentage is degrading. And now we are noticing the effect of the degradation of these sensitive areas and how much they impacted our environment and how much they protected us from negative effects. Therefore, we have to protect and try to restore all the damage that we created.
Yeah, I think the reason is the coastal ecosystem has been threatened more than the other because it has been a recreational area. People used to go there and have fun and destroy the coastal ecosystem. And therefore, it is imperative that they should be taken care of.
Also, I would like to add that coastal ecosystems have been degrading because they are very sensitive to high temperature. With the increase of climate change, with the greenhouse effect, many mangroves have and coastal systems have been degrading away from these high temperatures.
Okay, as I said the guests, I think the richest ecosystem are the coastal ones that are only 4% of the surface, and this is just to give you an overall picture about the degradation of marine. Here in the Arabian Gulf, there are several coral reefs. Almost 70% of them are completely dead because of the coastal building works that are now in several countries, like here in Qatar or maybe in Oman or UAE. And the remaining 27 are in threat, completely threatened and in danger of extinction.
What is the main cause of destruction or harm to these ecosystems? Can each one of you tell us one main cause of this destruction?
Human activity is one of the major sources of destruction, especially recreational activities and industrial activities.
I think mangrove can handle pollution in much better than any other plant, but we are polluting little too much, so they are also dying of a lot of chemical pollutant.
Okay, like I've said before, the temperatures affect these coastal systems and making them causing destructions, and also the change in water sea levels are also affecting these coastal ecosystems in a really very badly way.
Just to summarize, I think so. There could be like man-induced perturbations, like for example pollution, coastal occupation, coastal, the habitat loss. This is really important here in this area, and as well, the sea global warming. This is not only an increase in the ocean temperature as well the sea surface temperature. There are the pH of the ocean is decreasing. Is going to be acid, in the last decade. So there is an important, perturbation for coral reefs, for example.
Thank you very much. So we now know that coastal ecosystems are harmed. We want to know, how does harming these ecosystems affect climate change and humans? Dr. Riera, how about if you answered this question?
As I told you before, this is the ocean acidification is really important, as well, the increase of ocean temperatures, because they, there is a process where the coral, loses, all of his internal algae, and this process is called, coral bleaching. And as well, the differences between, the seawater level, as well, they are really important for intertidal species. And I think this is the main, natural, variations. And then, for example, with man, activities, one of the most important things are resuspension of the sediment that creates like a shadow for the, organisms that live on the seabed.
Well, I have two words for that. Blue carbon. It's a double-headed weapon that could work in our way or against us. But mostly when we destroy these ecosystems, all the carbon that they have collected and they have absorbed from the surroundings will in fact be released and emitted, and will become a very, very huge source of climate change and climate pollution, because they last more than any other source of pollution, like industrial pollution, whether it's terrestrial or land or air. And also, they will stay for decades. They don't just wear off in a couple of years. They stay for decades, and they are a major source for climate change.
I will simply take the cue from my neighbor here. And see, I was reading a report on a recent report. More than 45 to 50% mangrove. There are some data which is not available from all over the world has been destroyed. Just remember, 1 hectare of mangrove can store 300 tons of carbon dioxide. You have destroyed millions and millions of hectares. If we continuously being destroying these mangroves, which are one of the biggest repository, along with other forest, ecosystem, then we are going to be asking for a big trouble.
Okay. A healthy ecosystem absorbs change and damage and then can recover quickly. But the more we damage our ecosystems, our ability to recover will be much harder. So we lose our resilience, and therefore we'll be more susceptible to damage.
Well, thank you all. Is it possible for the land covered by coastal ecosystem to be increased instead of decreased? Dr. Khan?
I think it can. What is being done here is that the importance of halophytes now will come into fore, because mangrove system can be developed into a very typical atmospheric condition where you have estuaries, and then you have little tidal waves. But halophytes can grow in all kinds of coastal area. So what I'm saying is that even if those areas where you cannot grow mangrove, you can replace it with the halophytes, and you can see already halophytes are growing all over Qatar. If all you need to do is to develop a system to irrigate them with seawater, and you can make most of the coastal area green.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. Now let's go back to our live audience and the questions.
Well, how can we make a change?
How can we make a change?
First of all, I think education is very important. People need to know more about everything. And they need to understand that even if they try to specialize in one field, let's say business, then they need to keep other ideas in their mind. They have to still think about the environment and how can they improve the environment within their field, even within their specialization. And not just say, okay, not just specialize in environment, but think about policies, think about business, think about social studies and economic studies, and how all of these different factors can help everyone improve the environment we live in.
As a student and a part of this youth, I'm not going to blabber much about things that are out of our reach. I'm just going to say that you cannot command people to do something without starting with yourself first. When you start with yourself, it's like a snowball effect. Everything will start rolling out. By taking less showers, using less water, doing these little things, even though it won't make a big difference as you think, but it does at the end of the day, because when you'd feel the change in yourself, and you would be inspired to help change others. And also, we are very blessed to have such a country which provides a lot of programs like this today, which actually educates us about all of the different things we can help with the ecosystem.
We have another live audience question.
Mr. Isaac, with you, we see all of us that Qatar introduced more efforts to keep up with the environment. But the question, the Gulf still considered one of the most polluted areas in the world. Why? Why is it?
So why is the Gulf area considered as a polluted area in the world?
Because the rate of coastal alteration here is one of the highest, in the world, here in the Gulf, and there are so many episodes of oil spills as well that have affected, coastal communities, and we got so many. The coastal building works are, increasing, the surface of several countries in, several times. And this, coastal occupation, this creates, there's a destruction of coastal communities. That is, I think, the three main reasons that the Gulf it could be one of the most polluted areas in the world.
Thank you, Dr. Yaya.
Now let's go back to our virtual audience question. Nadine from Doha is saying, I think that industrial development is the main cause to coastal pollution. Are there negative impacts of these fisheries on the environment? Ms. Moza, I think that question is for you.
Industry does affect the fisheries, but industries are working really hard to try to improve their environmental impact on their surroundings. Therefore, there is an impact, but fisheries can recover, and we're trying to work together because industry is very important for our economy as well. We can't cancel it out. Therefore, people have to work together and try to improve the environment.
Thank you, Ms. Moza. Now we have another question from our live audience.
My name is Omar, and my question is, why are coastal ecosystems more important than others? What makes them special?
Okay, so what makes coastal ecosystems special?
Like I said before, two words. Blue carbon. Blue carbon is actually the carbon that's been preserved by the sea or coastal ecosystems. They are absorbed by the mangroves or any other coastal plants, and they're kept in the ground as nitrates or as useful sediments. But when you cut these trees out, these blue carbon, like I said before, become a major and a big emission for climate change. And also, there's something special about coastal ecosystem that not any other, let's say, forestation does, which is it stores up to five more times than a normal tree does. Like imagine one tree, the amount of carbon it can store, and double it by 5. That's how much one individual carbon can store, one individual mangrove can store.
Thank you, Reem. And now we have another question.
We now actually don't have a virtual question. So as we know that the coastal ecosystems are being harmed, we want to know why are they harmed? We now know that coastal ecosystems are harmed. We want to know why are they harmed. Each of you has 30 seconds to answer.
Well, there are many reasons. People want to develop, construction has to be made, and people want to go and have a good area. What I want to say using this forum is, a place like Qatar has only 9 to 10 different places where you can grow and protect and revegetate your mangrove. You do not have very many places. And just imagine that you revegetate that whole area, those 9 and 10 places, with the plant which can survive, which can reproduce, and which can be good to look at. I think we must do that.
I think one of the main reasons that there is a lot of coastal degradation is because of our ignorance. We need to be more aware of our actions, and we need to always question what our actions are causing to the environment and to the people around us.
I think one of the main reasons we're harming these ecosystems is from the pile-up of our abuse towards Mother Nature. We have been very much consuming all of our resources in these past decades, and it's all piling up on us now and on these beautiful ecosystems.
Yeah, I agree entirely with my colleagues. I think the main problem here is coastal habitat loss and habitat degradation, especially in this country, in Qatar. But maybe we have to be aware that maybe we can follow our lifestyle without continual degrading coastal communities. So maybe it could be like a threshold that this is the coastal ecosystem is not going to be recovered, as pristine conditions. So you have to be aware that maybe, for example, this point is we are coming closer and closer to this point, and maybe we have to pass by, pass this point, and maybe it could be really a disaster for us. So you must be aware about that.
Okay, so we have one more question for the panelists. As we now know that the coastal ecosystems in the Gulf are being polluted, we would like to know about the other countries in the world. What is the status of the coastal ecosystems in the other countries of the world, like the US or any other country?
I'm going to talk about fisheries. Fisheries are in demand. And a lot of smaller countries, let's say around the Horn of Africa, where other international bodies are overfishing their fish. And this creates competition. And the local people cannot survive with competition from the international companies that are fishing illegally in their waters.
It depends where you are. There are some area which is less polluted than the others. For example, most of the developed country have a very stringent regulation. They have a primary, secondary, tertiary, and even quaternary cleaning system, so that when they dump something in the sea, most of them is very clean. But on the other side, you have a underdeveloped country or developing country that cannot afford to even have a primary cleaning up system, and they are polluting much more than the other. So pollution globally is a serious problem, because there are very few small regions where this really been taken care of.
I would like to add some points to what of my colleagues have said. As my humble 17 years that I've lived in, I've just experienced what happened in Mexico. They had a major oil spill, and it destroyed most of their ecosystems, their coastal ecosystems, which is really bad, because Mexico really depends on that, and their economy has really and it really dropped majorly. This is my only encounter with other countries, but I hear like in Australian ecosystem, they're really preserving it and treating them like they are one of their habitats.
Okay, yes, so for example, there's a kind of global pollution worldwide. Even, for example, we got in the Pacific Ocean, there is an ocean plastic, just made of plastic. There's several, thousands of square kilometers. As this plastic, belongs to several nations, US, Japan, most of the, Pacific countries. And then we go to like coastal pollution, maybe could be several, like black points, really heavily contaminated. And it depends, it doesn't matter, I think, that the country is developed or a developing country. It depends on politics. It depends on the policies that has been conducted in this kind of countries to preserve contamination.
Our live audience seems to be very engaged with our webcast. We have one more live question from our audience.
But I would like to ask about how we can use these large amounts of mangroves as a source of oil or something useful for them.
So Mr. Maher from Musab bin Umair is asking, how can we use the mangroves and those plants that grow next to the ecosystem? How can we use them as a source of energy?
I wouldn't use a mangrove as a source of energy, but I would use halophyte, which is the next in line. If you visit mangrove, you will see next in line there will be plant growing in that area, which is halophyte. So halophyte can be used as source of biofuel, biodiesel. They can be a source of medicine, can be source of fodder, can be source of chemicals, can stabilize your sand dunes. You can do anything you want to. Some of them can grow directly with seawater irrigation, while others require brackish water irrigation.
How much of the world's annual carbon dioxide emissions can coastal ecosystems store? The choices were A, 250%, B, 150%, or C, 100%, or D, 50%. Our audience have answered 250%, 15% of our audience have answered for A, 40% of our audience have answered for B, 6% of our audience have answered for C, and 37% of our audience have answered for D. And the right answer is A, 250% of the coastal carbon emissions.
I think we reached the end of this webcast. We have heard from our great guest speakers. Thank you for joining us today and giving some of your precious time for the environment and raising awareness about it.
On behalf of me and Qatar Foundation International and Global Nomads Group, we would like to thank everybody who have participated in this webcast. We would like to ask our speakers to send one more question to the audience.
I would like to ask a question to you guys. I guess the audience didn't understand what blue carbon is. So can you again explain in 30 seconds for each, what is blue carbon?
Basic idea is that we have to increase our vegetation. We are cutting our forest, we are cutting our mangrove ecosystem, we are destroying ecosystem, and we are losing our capacity to store carbon dioxide into blue carbon form. Therefore, the whole idea is that you become aware that you have to increase the capacity of ecosystem to absorb as much carbon dioxide as possible.
I think one of the ideas of blue carbon is try to increase the amount of carbon sequestered through coastal ecosystems to mitigate against the effects that we have caused or the emissions that we have increased and put out in the environment.
Thank you all. Now we have a last question from our real audience. Yeah.
I have a question. Probably it's going to be broken into too many questions, but you can start answering what you really like. I mean, the first one, how often environmentalists and scientists collide with each other? Since we all know that what emission China produces is going to affect the United States, and what the U.S. produces, what emission the U.S. produces is going to affect Great Britain, or Britain, how often are we influenced? Are we doing this only because great countries and superpowers and politicians want us to do this, or are we more influenced by the politicians, or are we doing it because of the science?
I think it's a very good question. And the question is that why we are doing it. We are doing it for the sake of the politics of the world, or there are some other reason. I would like to tell you, look, all this talk is not a talk anymore. We are facing a real threat of extinction of this universe. Carbon is increasing every day, and and that is causing increase in temperature. Increase in 1 degree centigrade temperature can destroy 40% or more than 40% of crop production. And if we keep on increasing like that, it may increase to 2 and 3 degrees centigrade. Just imagine, I'm talking about not Qatar, which is not very conducive for agriculture. I'm talking about United States of America, which alone can produce enough agriculture produce to feed almost most of the world. They will suffer bitterly because of the rise in temperature. Our survival is in question. Okay, even if there is a politics, of course I know there is a politics. I know the Canadians and Americans are fighting all the time on what pollution they are making there. But let's forget about the politics. It is our survival, ladies and gentlemen. We have to fight our survival, not for politics.
Okay, so we as students, we always want to do something and help in protecting the environment. Please tell all the youth, how can we influence coastal protection in our community? We want to have one answer from the youth, which is Reem, and one answer from the adults. Dr. Ajmal, please.
Well, it's really, really basic. It's really, really simple, and it's really not much effort at all. Like in the past December, we've had a march for climate change, and I've seen over 1,000 people come up and cross the streets of Qatar and actually want climate change. Why can't we plan more such events like that? Get people engaged in such a really cool or hip way. We can make the unwantable wantable. Like we're the youth, nothing can stand in our way, and we can also educate our friends more about it, because nobody listens more than from one of his best friends. So we have a great impact on people, and we should use that in our in the Mother Nature's way.
I think the job is left to the youth. People of my age or close to my age, I'm sorry, our brains are closed. We are not willing to listen to anybody. But I think the youth has to educate themselves first, what's going on. They should understand the enormity of this situation that exists right now. We are facing a real disaster and we are not really aware of it. Youth has to face the music themselves so they become aware of it. The only last point I want to make, when I was teaching a female student in Qatar University, I told them, look, you have to change the way you new generation think. The female of world can make a big difference. They can change the culture of their progeny, and that will lead to the change in the sustainable development all over the world. So we have to change the culture, and female, it is your job to do it. I'm not saying male cannot do it, but male cannot change the culture, but female at their homes and in their cradles can change the culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So as we now reaching at the end of our webcast, on behalf of me and all the students and educators who participated in this webcast, we would like to thank Qatar Foundation International and Global Nomads Group for organizing this webcast. We also want to thank the students themselves, because this is a student-led webcast. The amazing team of students have worked collaboratively hard to work to make this webcast possible. And we also want to thank both Mus'ab bin Umair and Al Bayan Secondary School for hosting and leading the event. You can continue the discussion on different environmental issues in QFI's Twitter page and GNG's page too. We wish that you're planning to help in protecting and conserving the coastal ecosystem. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Now we're going to have the last minute for each speaker. So can you tell us last word as closing word?
Okay, thanks for sharing this event with me. I would like to encourage all the young people here in Qatar just to have fun, just doing something with related with the environment, especially with the coastal environment. And I think the initiative, this council initiative like mangroves, are quite good to just give an overall picture to the people, to their homes, how good is your country, about how diverse is your country, about mangroves, and how lost biodiversity they still are there in outside from your homes.
I'll just keep this brief and simple. Take a step outside your own world and drench yourself various level of various cultures and educate yourself about what you don't know. The world, there's a great world there out there, and I can't wait to see it. Go green.
I think I will again address to the young generation here. Please, I can give you one example. With that example is that the U.S. government and U.S. people are deadly against making any concession for the global warming, and they remember Bush, has taken away the concession that they committed in Brazil. Now, in last 3-4 months, the youth of United States of America is going to Washington regularly, and they are forcing them to change their law enforcement. So future is in your hand. Learn, please. Learning is very, very important. Without learning, you won't be anywhere. Learn what the problem is, understand the gravity of the situation, and meet with the people and educate with the people, and then you educate as many as you can, because your parent may listen to you, they will not listen to anybody else. I think future lies with you. If you work hard, if you change yourself, I'm sure you're going to make a big changes. Global warming is a real issue. It's not debatable. It's not something up in the air. It is real. We have to fight it. We have to fight back, and that's your job to do.
Lastly, I just want to say that I want you all to be more engaged with your society and demand the change that you want to see happen. And make sure everyone can hear your voice.
Well, at the end, we would like to say that you are unstoppable and another world will be possible. Thank you all, and goodbye.